All right, so in this video, I'm going to be covering the process of combining two techniques to create extremely high quality facial animations with only an iPhone and a PC. So essentially what we're going to be doing is utilizing LiveLink Face app on the iPhone and then creating our full facial animations from that. And then we're going to be generating AI voice audio files and then creating the mouth movement and jaw movement from that audio file and then combining those two animations together to give an overall extremely high quality end result. Now, I haven't seen this particular combination of techniques used before, and a lot of the videos I've seen out there that cover LiveLink or the audio file process, they are missing bits of information, at least with the latest version of Unreal Engine. And a lot of them don't fix issues like the neck being attached to the body, losing the neck movement, losing the facial animation. And some of the videos that do cover it are outdated, and those things no longer work in the latest version of Unreal Engine. So for this video, I will be utilizing the latest version of Unreal Engine that's available as of the published date of this video, which is Unreal Engine 5.5. And I will also go over a lot of the benefits of the techniques that I'm going to be discussing. So one of the main things is if you use an audio file to generate facial animation, it only really manipulates the mouth and does some slight eye movement, but it's not a full facial performance. If you do a full facial performance, the mouth movement leaves a lot to be desired. Plus, you can't really go back and readjust it later if you want to. Utilizing this technique, we can use things like voice changers to change the pitch, the speed, etc. of the voice. We can also use fully AI generated voice audio files, which will be what I'm covering in this particular video. So it allows you to have a lot more freedom, and the end result is extremely high quality. And once again, all you need for this is an iPhone and a PC running Unreal Engine. So what we're going to be starting with is this.
All right, so this is going to be my test performance. I'm going to start by rotating my head around in a semicircular motion. I'm going to tilt it to the side, tilt it this way, go a little fast.
So that is just the raw output from my facial performance. And then what you're going to end up with is going to be this.
Why, hello.
Hello.
I'm a demonstration of an AI voice being used with a MetaHuman asset to control its mouth and jaw movement.
Right. So I'm going to show you how to get from point A to point B and have an end result that looks like this, utilizing the techniques that I just mentioned. So I'm going to go over the entire process from start to finish, and hopefully there won't be any questions left when I'm done, but if there are, please leave them in the comments. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is download the LiveLink Face app off of the Apple App Store. Once you have it installed, you're going to want to load it up, and the first thing it's going to ask you is to select the capture mode. You're going to want to use MetaHuman Animator, and then click on Continue, or tap on Continue. And then it's going to ask you to enter a slate name and take number. If it doesn't ask you to do it, you'll see the little icon down at the bottom that you can tap on, allowing you to do that. So you're going to be taking basically two takes, right? One is going to be your calibration take, and the other is going to be your performance take. So we want to name these accordingly. It's very important to keep the naming decipherable, so you don't want them to both be performance and you don't know which one is which. So the very first one I'm going to call calib for calibration. I'm going to call this take 1, so calib 1. And then for my performance take, I'm going to call this perf and then 1. You can obviously name it whatever you want. Just make sure that when you import the footage, you're going to know what they are, because you're going to have to go by the names. It's just going to make things much easier. Now, another thing to keep in mind is you do want to have your mobile device on the same Wi-Fi network as your computer running Unreal Engine, so you can import the data directly into Unreal Engine. If not, you're going to have to manually upload it somewhere and then download it on your computer. But if you have your phone on the same Wi-Fi, then it's going to work perfectly. So what you want to do is click on the little gear icon at the top of the app, the top left, and then scroll down till you see OSC server, which you'll see here. You want to tap on that. Once you tap on that, you'll see that there's an IP address. Take note of that IP address. You can either pop it up on your phone when you're ready to use it, or you can type it or write it down somewhere, because you're going to be using this later to be able to pull the footage off of the phone. Okay, so once you do all that, you want to go through and do your two takes. All right, so for your calibration take, you basically want to look straight into the camera, look straight forward, look to your left, look to your right, and then show your teeth with a little bit of a gap in between your top and bottom teeth. So I'm going to show you my calibration take, and you can basically just replicate that on your own. So what I did is I looked straight into the camera, then I showed my teeth, then I looked left, and then right. And you only need one frame of each of these positions, so you can just record it as one continuous take. You don't have to hold each position for very long, and then you're just going to isolate a single frame from each of those. So this was my calibration take. So you can see my very first one is looking straight into the camera. Make sure you're looking into the camera and not at the phone screen, because you want that straightforward line of sight. It's going to utilize that to figure out where your eyes are and stuff like that. And then I showed my teeth, which was this frame here, where I was showing my teeth and looking into the phone. So you want to make sure that your eyes are looking straight forward into the camera again, and that your teeth are shown, but that you also have a space between the top and bottom set of teeth, so it can differentiate the top and bottom easily. And then I looked to the left. When you look to the left and right, make sure that your eyes are facing in the direction of your face. So don't be looking back at the phone and all that stuff. At least have a couple frames in there where you can grab one of those frames where you're looking with your eyes in the direction of your face, as you can see I'm doing here. And then I looked to the right, did the same thing, and looked straight forward with my eyes as well. And then those are going to be the 4 frames that I'm going to be utilizing for the calibration. So that's all you need to do for your calibration take. I'll let this play through so you can see what I did. Straight into the camera, showed teeth, and then looked straight into the camera. The reason I was looking down originally was to make sure there's no a gap between my teeth, because you want that. Look to my left with my eyes facing forward, and then look to my right with my eyes facing forward. Now you'll see me looking back at the camera at certain parts of those. That's because I'm looking in the camera, the screen of the phone, to make sure that the position I'm in is going to be good enough for the calibration. So you want to make sure that you do that when you're doing your calibration, just to make sure that your position is correct when you're doing those poses. And then you can shift your eyes to be facing in the direction that they're supposed to be facing for the actual frame that you're going to need. All right. So that is my calibration take, and once again, you can just replicate that on your own. So now I'm going to show you how to bring in the actual footage from your mobile device. So the first thing you're going to do, I already have all the assets created in here, but I created a new empty folder just to show you how to do this whole process for the purpose of the video. First thing you're going to want to do is go in and enable the MetaHuman plugin. So you're going to go to Edit, Plugins, MetaHuman, and make sure that these two are checked. You don't have to worry about this MetaHuman runtime. This is deprecated. You want to make sure that MetaHuman and MetaHuman SDK are enabled. It's going to ask you to restart if they were not enabled and you enabled them. Once they are enabled, you have access to the MetaHuman's assets that we're going to be using. And another thing that you want to do is obviously import a MetaHuman asset. So if you're not familiar with how to do that, you want to go up to this little cube icon up here, load up Quixel Bridge. And if it asks you to log in, obviously log into your Epic Games account, you want to make sure you click on Stay here. Now, obviously, Quixel Bridge has been replaced by Fab, but Fab in the Unreal Editor, Windows does not actually support MetaHuman import. You can actually download and import them from the web browser through Fab, but it's easier to do it this way. So just click on Stay here, go to MetaHumans, and then go to My MetaHumans, and then bring in your assets. So for this example, I'm using Demo Man and Demo Woman. So if you click on your MetaHuman asset, you can import it. So you want to select the quality first. For the purpose of the example, I'm using Cinematic. Once you do that, you want to click Download. Mine's already been downloaded. That's why the checkbox is next to them. And then once they're downloaded, you want to click Add. Once it's done adding, you will see the MetaHumans folder over here. And then your MetaHuman will be under its own folder named by its MetaHuman name over here. So what you want to do is in the folder of your choosing, in this case I called it mh_example, mh for MetaHuman, you're going to want to right click, go to MetaHuman Animator, and then go into MetaHuman Capture Source, or Capture Source. Okay, and for the naming convention, I'm just calling this mh underscore and then whatever the asset is. So in this case, mh source. I'm going to double click this. And then in here, what you want to do is change this source type from undefined to LiveLink face connection. So remember when I said earlier that you want to take note of that IP address? That is essentially your localhost IP address, which is going to be used to pull in the assets. And once again, your phone needs to be connected to the same Wi-Fi as your computer that's running Unreal Engine. So So that is going to be my IP that I'm going to put in there. So once that's locked in, I can now go into Tools, Capture Manager. I can go in here and pull in my source, right? So you can see I have these different calibration takes that I already did. And what you want to do is select all of the files you're going to bring. So you obviously want your calibration and you want whatever performance takes you're going to add. and you want to click Add to Queue. Okay. Now it's telling me I can't do that with these because I've already pulled these in, right? But what it'll do is I'll add them to the right side here. Once they're added, you want to click this icon here. So this icon, so you can see it says Import All, right? So once you select the assets, hit Add to Queue, they're going to show up over here, and all you have to do is hit Import All. You'll see a little progress bar showing their progress. It doesn't take them very long to come in. Obviously, it's going to be based on your Wi-Fi connection. And once they're imported, you can utilize those assets, okay? Then you can close out this window. So the next thing you want to do is right-click MetaHuman Animator and create a MetaHuman identity. Okay. So I'm going to create that. You also want to right-click and go into MetaHuman Animator again, and then create a MetaHuman Performance. Okay. I'm going to call this one MH_Performance Mocap. This is actually going to be for our facial capture data from the LiveLink app. I'm going to create another one of these just to use for later. And I'm going to call this one MH_Performance Audio. This is going to be the one that's going to generate the mouth movement from our audio track. So once we have all that in, I'm going to click Save All. And then I'm going to go into my MetaHuman identity. I'm going to create components from footage, and I want to select my calibration take to start with, right? Once you do that, it's going to take it a second to load up the file. It might freeze for a few while you're doing this. So once you have this calibration file loaded, you then want to scrub to the frame that you're going to use for your very first calibration frame. So that's going to be you looking straight into the camera, mouth closed, all of that good stuff. So from here, what you want to do is just click on Promote Frame. If it gives you a pop-up, you can just hit OK, and you can also check the box to Don't Show Again. Once you do this, it's going to lock your timeline, so you can't actually do anything down here. So what you want to do is click on this camera icon to unlock your timeline. Then you want to go to your next frame, which is going to be you looking to the left. Don't do the teeth yet. We'll come back to that a little bit later. You're going to click Promote Frame on that as well. It's going to do the same thing. So you can see now we have frame 0 and frame 1. If I click on those, it's going to go between them. Click on this again to unlock your timeline once more, and then find your looking to the right pose, which should be right here. Promote that frame as well. Okay. So once you've done that and you've promoted those frames, the next thing that you want to do is go into MetaHuman Identity Solve at the top. So click on that. It's going to take it a few to go in and run the solve for the identity. Once it's done doing that, you want to go over and click on Body, and then select the body type for the asset you're going to be using. This probably doesn't have too much of an effect on the final asset, but it's worth making sure it's consistent anyway. So what I'm going to be doing is selecting this one right here. So I'm going to keep it at medium height, so you can adjust your height here. So in your MetaHuman creator, you obviously have short, medium, and tall, or short, average, and tall, and you have different body types for those. So I'm going to select the medium as the default value here. You see as I scrub that, it changes. Then I'm going to select this medium build body type here. Okay. So once you select that body type, you want to go to Mesh to MetaHuman, and you're going to select this bottom value here, Auto Rig MetaHuman Identity with Skeletal Mesh and Full MetaHuman. Okay, so you're going to click on that, and then it's going to ask you to log in. Okay, and then once you're logged into your Epic Games account, it's going to start processing the solve. So it says it's going to say down here, waiting for MetaHuman backend. This can take a little bit of time. It shouldn't be too long. And then once it's done, it's going to stall like it does here for a second, and then it will say finalizing current operation. Once it's done finalizing the current operation, it's going to say that all the assets are now available for you in your content browser, right? So it went down and created this identity asset here, this SKMH identity. So you can click on OK on that. So once you're done doing that, you can then go back and you want to add in the teeth. So what you want to do is click on Poses, Add Pose, and then Add Teeth, right? So you want to do the same thing. You want to scrub in your timeline to the frame where you have your teeth shown with the gap in between them, and you're looking directly into the camera, and everything else should just be a neutral facial expression, right? So once you do that, you want to click Promote Frame again. You'll see that it now has detected my teeth, and one thing to take note of is this area right here. This dot and this dot are going to basically delineate the top and bottom row of teeth. So that's one of the reasons you need to make sure that you have a slight gap in your teeth when you're smiling and looking at the camera. Okay, so once you do that, you want to click on Fit Teeth at the top up here. So Fit Teeth is relatively quick, but now what we want to do after we fit the teeth is we want to go to Prepare for Performance. Now, Prepare for Performance is one of the longer steps during this whole process. So this will take quite a bit, and I'm going to jump ahead so you don't have to sit through this whole loading screen. All right, so once we have all that out of the way, we can then close the identity. We can obviously save it. I always recommend hitting Save All here just to make sure that anything that hasn't been saved has been saved. If you see a little asterisk at the bottom left corner of any of the thumbnails in the content browser, that means the asset has been modified, but it has not been saved. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be opening up the MetaHuman Performance mocap that we created. Once again, you're just going to right-click MetaHuman Animator and create a MetaHuman Performance. In this case, I'm naming it mh_performance_mocap. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger. I do want to keep the rest of the editor in the background. So now that we have this mh_performance_mocap asset opened up, we're going to go over here and change the footage capture data. So if I expand this a little bit, footage capture data, we're going to change this to our calibration take, or sorry, our performance take, right? So it can be any performance that you capture, doesn't really matter as long as it was all utilizing the same calibration data. So once again, your face position being roughly in the same place as when you did the calibration, all that good stuff, and the lighting being pretty similar. You don't want to have too much variation because then the calibration won't be as accurate, so just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to load up this one here. This is my performance. So this will bring in the entire video and audio take. So what you want to do at this point is you're going to want to process this. But before we do that, you want to go down here and choose your MetaHuman identity, right? So I have two identities. This is the one that I originally created, and then this is the one that I'm using for the example, or actually the other way around. So this is the one I'm using for the example. So this is the one that I just calibrated, so I'm going to utilize this. Once you do that, it's going to generate a face roughly based on the data from your face. Next thing I want to do is change the head movement mode. This is also extremely important. Change this to control rig. You don't want to use translation data, okay? Because that's not really going to be utilized for what we're going to be doing. So once you do that, you're going to want to click process. Once you click process, it's going to run through and generate all the motion. Basically, the initial solve will be the basic movement and all that stuff, and then it'll do a second pass where it refines all of that movement and then gives you the finished result. So for the purposes of this video, I am going to use a performance that I've already solved. So you can keep continuing with the performance that you just created. I'm going to utilize one that I've already solved, which is the same performance that I was just going to solve for the video when I did the setup process. So what you're going to do is load up that performance, and you're going to do export level sequence. Do not do export animation because that will not solve some of the issues that you're going to encounter. We need to do some tweaking. So that was the whole reason we use this control rig over here for the head movement. So I'm going to export level sequence. Under my MH example folder, I'm going to create a new folder. Call this one sequences. And I'm just going to call this one performance_mocap and save it there. You can leave everything as default and hit create on this window that pops up, and then you can close that performance. And I'm going to hit Save All. So I'm going to go back to that sequences folder that I just created with the asset in there. And I'm going to go to my outliner up here, and I'm going to drag this into my scene. So I'm going to drag that sequence into my scene. I'm going to put it into a folder called Sequences. And then I'm going to select this sequence. I'm going to zero out its position and set its Z value to 400, just so it's floating above all the other assets, but it's still in our scene. I'm going to hit Save All once more, and then I'm going to load up that level sequence. So what this sequence does is it'll bring in a video plane with your actual performance playing on it, as well as the display mesh that you were using for that performance solve. It'll also bring in the audio file, which in this case I'm going to mute because it's going to play over me talking. And then if I hit play, you can see that the performance plays with the video in the background, right? So it gives you a nice visual representation. Okay, so I'm going to save everything because I just disabled that audio. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this asset here, the identity display mesh. I'm going to go into its details, under the details panel, under mesh, and I'm going to change it to the asset that I'm going to be targeting. So I'm going to do demo man face mesh in this case. Once I do that, you'll notice right away that if I hit play, we have all the facial animation, but we do not have the head movement anymore, which is fine. This is expected. We're going to be able to fix this here shortly. So I'm going to stop this and go back here. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take the MetaHuman actor, which in this case is BP underscore demo man. I'm going to bring him into my timeline by just dragging and dropping. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is under this BP demo man asset in the timeline, I'm going to get rid of the control rigs for the body and the face. We don't need those. I'm going to copy the control rig from the MetaHuman identity. So this is the one that already existed in the timeline. And then I'm going to select the face and I'm going to paste it under there. So Control V, and I'm going to hit play. So now you can see our animation is playing on our MetaHuman. Once again, we do not have the neck movement or any of that, so we're going to fix that. This is just the part of the step that we need to take to get there. So I'm going to save all. I'm going to select my MetaHuman asset. Actually, the very first thing I'm going to do is close sequencer for now, because some of the things we're going to open up, sometimes when you make adjustments to those, when sequencer is open, it can actually crash the editor. So if you're running any crashing issues, a lot of times it has to do with the sequence editor being open, with some of the other things being open that I'm about to show you. So I'm going to select our MetaHuman asset here, our blueprint. In the sub details, or the sub outliner for it, I'm going to select the face. I'm going to double click the skeletal mesh asset thumbnail. Okay, so this will load up the skeletal mesh for the face for that character. Then what I want to do is I'm going to click on this icon up here. This is going to load up the face animation blueprint. So in here, what you want to do is double click the anim graph, which is right here. And you want to go towards the end of this node tree. If I zoom out, you can see what this tree looks like. Towards the end of this node tree, you'll see that we have a layered blend per bone. What you want to do is select this. If it has any values in here, just hit delete. Make sure the blend mode is set to branch filter, and you're going to hit plus, expand the index value, and what you're going to type in is neck underscore 01, and you're going to set the blend depth to 1. As soon as you do that, I recommend hitting save and then compile. It's better to hit save than compile than save, because sometimes if you hit compile first, it can actually crash the editor when you're working with these MetaHuman blueprints. They are a little bit finicky. Basically, what this is going to do is tell it that anything above the neck should not be affected by the animation below the neck, right? So that'll get us our head movement back. But there's one more thing that we have to do. Over here on the in the preview window inside of our Face 9 BP, you want to click on Edit where it says Post-Process Animation Blueprint. This is going to load up the Post-Process Animation Blueprint. Now you'll see I've already got a node chunk in here. Basically what we need to do is plug this in between the output pose and the rig logic. This will be the end of this blueprint by default. And what you want to do is slide this out and then bring in this this group of nodes here. Now where I got these nodes is actually from another post-process blueprint. I believe it may be an outdated version of MetaHumans, but it is the only way I was able to solve the neck issue is by plugging this in, baking out the animation, and exporting it. So in order to get this little chunk of code, or this little block of nodes, click on the engine folder over here and type in archetype, or start to type it in. And what you want to do is load up this face archetype here, the skeletal mesh. This is going to be the same thing as our demo man face mesh, but using a different version of MetaHumans. And then you're going to click on the same thing up here, which is going to be the animation blueprint for this. Once again, you want to make sure you go to anim graph. And then what you want to do is select these 3 nodes here, right? So you can see we have an output pose, we have an input pose, and then these nodes in between. So you just want to grab all of these, you want to copy them, and then you can close these out and go back to your original post-process blueprint, and then just paste these in, and then you're going to plug this in between these nodes here, right? Just like this. Okay, so these 3 nodes are the same as these 3 nodes that I just pasted in. So for the purposes of the video, I'm going to put these in. Now I've already commented this out, saying to connect before baking anim for sequencer, and then disconnect before anim playback. Okay, so I'm going to plug these in. So this source will go into this icon here, and then this one will go into our output pose. Okay, so we're basically taking this rig logic and plugging it into this head movement IK, or inverse kinematic, and then procedural control rig, and plugging it back into our output pose. Once you do that, you want to hit save and then compile. Once again, this helps avoid crashing most of the time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close this out. We don't want this open while we're running sequencer because once again it can cause crashing issues. Then we're going to go back into sequencer, open level sequence, and then we're going to play back. Now, as you can see, we have our head movement back, but we still have that disconnection of the head from the body, right? So we're going to be able to get around that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back down to our demo blueprint man here, face, and we're going to right click this and do bake animation sequence. So what this is going to do is take that control rig animation, then bake it down into an actual animation sequence. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this into our MH example. I'm going to create a new folder by right clicking on that. So I'm going to call this animations. And I'm going to call this one Demo Man Mocap, right? And then we'll export that, export to animation sequence, as you can see here. You don't have to change any of the values into this. So once it's done, what we can do is go in and add that animation to our asset. So I'm going to mute this control rig that we have in there. You don't want to delete it. You can just mute it, keep it in there just in case you want to do any changes to it later. And then what we're going to do is on the face, we're going to click the plus. We're going to go into animation, and then we're going to click that Demo Man Mocap that we just created, right? Okay. And this is the one we just created, so I'm going to add that in. So now that animation is controlling his head movement. But as you can see, the neck is still disconnected. So I'm going to show you how we can fix that. I'm going to close sequencer again, save this. Select our demo man, his face, and then once again go to mesh, and then select, double click that thumbnail, right? So we selected BP demo man, we selected his face under the sub outliner, and then we double clicked the thumbnail for his skeletal mesh asset under the mesh category. Then we're going to load up the blueprint again. We're going to go to our post-process blueprint again by clicking edit over here, and we're going to disconnect this group of 3 nodes and just plug this directly back in, save, compile, close this out. We're going to go back into our sequence, and now when we hit playback, you can see that everything works properly, right? So we have our neck movement, the head is attached to the body perfectly, everything works exactly how we want, right? So that's the process for actually getting everything working from A to B with just using a standard animation captured from LiveLink. But we're going to take this a step further. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go into the body. I'm going to hit plus. So in our sequence, we're going to select the body under Demo Man, hit plus, go to animation. I'm going to look for something called idle. So I've already created an idle demo man. So I'm going to select this. Now, once you add in this animation, you want to make sure that it spans the length of your sequence. So just grab the end of it and drag it across. If you happen to have the playhead somewhere that's not at the beginning, that's going to start from that point. So just make sure that it spreads the entire length of your sequence. So now you can see we have his body movement as well as the head animation, everything that we just added. Now I'm going to show you how we created that animation. So I'm going to close sequencer again. I'm going to save everything. So basically what you want to do is you want to go to content, you want to click add, and you want to click add feature or content pack, and you want to select third person and then add to project. Let it do its thing, finish adding to project, and then you can close this window. Once it does, you'll get this character folder, right? You want to clear your search and you want to filter animation sequence. And then in here, you can type idle. Right? This will give you idle animations. So you'll see that there's an MF idle and an MM idle. MF is female, MM is male. So all you need to do is select one of those assets, right-click on it, and retarget animations. And then what you want to do is select the target skeletal mesh. In this case, since this is going to be the male asset, we want to select the male medium body here. And then we want to select the actual animation, right? So it doesn't matter which animation you select here, you still have to select it here. So this is our MM idle. So if you double click that, you can see the playback and what the retarget looks like. And then all you have to do is hit export animations, select where you want it to be exported, and then export those, and then you can use them with your asset. And you would do the same process with the female asset, but instead of this mmed nrw body, you would obviously want to use the female version of that, which is fmed nrw body, right? And then select the mf idle. Okay, so that's how you can export those. You can obviously use any type of body animation that you want as long as it works with the MetaHuman skeleton, but this is a quick way to get some body movement with existing assets. Okay. And since I already did those conversions before, you can see that I have the body for the female and the male versions right here. All right. So once again, we've created the animation for the actual facial animation, but what we want to do is add the mouth animation to make it look much better than it currently does using an audio file. So let's jump onto that step. All right, so for generating the audio file, I use something called Speechify Studio. So studio.speechify.com. I'll obviously leave the link to this in the description. And with this, you can go in and do a bunch of very cool things using AI-generated voices. So what I did is I go into Playground here. I go in and type out the verbiage that I want. I select the voice that I want. I select the mood, the speed, the pitch, the volume, all that good stuff. So if you click on this up here, you can choose from all these different voices in here, right? And you can even go in and isolate them by language and accent. You can also choose age range, male, female, etc. And you can add in styles and all that are available. Once you do that, you can add them and then have them basically talk with any text that you type. So if you go into any of these, let's say I click on this.
Hi, my name is Scott. I am an English voice from the United States.
Right, so you can preview them here. You can also preview them with different speeds, pitches, and volumes, and speaking tones, right? Selecting these will not change what the output is. You have to change that up here separately. So you can select any of these voices, give it some dialogue. I usually like to add in some warm-up dialogue, so I added in ahem, 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 and then I give it a pause, and then I have it do its speech, because sometimes the burn-in for these AI-generated voices can get kind of messed up and warped, so I like to burn it in with some random verbiage. So in this case, I used Linda, who's a female. I gave her a cheerful tone. I set her speed to -2. Her pitch is default, and I added the volume to 15%. The volume does come out fairly low. So once you do that, you click on Generate Speech. It will go in and generate the dialogue, as you can hear here.
Why, hello. I'm a demonstration of an AI voice being used with a MetaHuman asset to control its mouth and jaw movement.
Right, so I generated that audio, and then you'll also notice that I have pauses in here. So if you want to add a pause, you can literally select anywhere you want to add a pause, hit Add Pause. Once you do, you can click on that pause and change the amount of time that that pause holds, right? So you can see I'm using ½ a second pauses for all of these just because it worked out well for the delivery that I wanted. Okay. So once you do that, you can go in and download the audio file. And then once you have the audio file, you want to bring it into Unreal Engine. So let's jump into that. All right, so once you have the audio file ready, you can drag and drop it straight into Unreal Engine into the content browser. I created an audio folder just for these. One thing I do recommend doing, because this is a human voice, and if you want to have it spatialized and all that stuff, I do recommend saving it as a mono 16-bit wave, right? That's going to be the most usable. And then if you're going to make it positional audio and spatial audio and stuff, it makes more sense for it to be a mono file. So we have those two audio files. So what we want to do is go back into our mh_example folder. And remember we created this mh performance audio. So we're going to double click on this. And we're going to set this up to do the same thing that we did before, but utilizing an audio file. So over here in the input type, we want to change this to audio. And from the audio dropdown, we want to select those the files, right? So I'm going to look for demo man. So VO demo man. Bring that in. Once again, head movement we can set to control rig. This shouldn't matter too much because we're not really going to use the head movement from this, and it doesn't really generate much head movement from it. But we'll still utilize that. And then for the visualization mesh, we can just use the one from the identity that we already created, which is down here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hit process. Same thing that we did before, right? And this will generate facial animation from the audio file. So we hit process. You'll see that it's going to go through, right? Now I already have this process, so on my end I'm not going to do that, but you want to make sure that yours gets processed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and use the existing file that I already have. So I've got the audio demo man here. Now with this asset, we can export it straight to an animation. So I'm going to do export animation. I'm going to go back into our MH example folders, animation. I'm going to call this one voice demo man and save it. You can leave the target skeletal mesh. You want to make sure that this is archetype skeleton, and make sure that it's the one from your MetaHumans folder in your root directory, right? So we have a MetaHumans archetype face that's under our engine plugins folder. We want to make sure it's from this MetaHumans folder. So if you hover over, it'll actually tell you the location of it right there. You can see the path. So game is our root. So game MetaHumans common face archetype skeleton. So we want to use that. That's the only thing that we have to change. And then you can click create. It will create that animation for you. So if I go back into our MH examples animations, where it created that animation output, we can see we have voice demo man. So if I load this up, we can see what this looks like. So this is the mouth animation generated from just the audio file, right? So you can see it gives a little bit of movement in the eyes, it gives some blinking randomly and stuff like that, but it's not really that convincing. We don't get the head movement and all that stuff. That's why it's such a good idea to combine this with the head movement. Okay, so what we want to do is let's close this one out, and then I'm going to load up the Demo Man Mocap animation. Okay, so we see I have our full animation here, right? We've got everything going on. And what we want to do is we basically want to replace the parts that animate the mouth with the frames or from the animation of the voice generated animation. Okay, so we're going to keep this open and we're going to double click the voice demo man that we just exported. You can't have two animations open next to each other. They all have to be in the same tab. So you have to basically go back and forth between them. So what we want to do is in this filter here, we want to type mouth. Now you can see this is only going to show the mouth expressions. So we're going to click on one of these, hit Control A to select everything, and then hit Control C to copy. You can also right click and copy if you want to. And then we're going to go back to our mocap, Demo Man Mocap animation. And we're just going to click on one of these and then hit Control Paste. Right, Control V. So basically what this is going to do is replace anything with the same name with the animation that we just copied and pasted in there. So we're going to go back and forth and do this a couple times. So we just did mouth. So we want to go back to our voice demo man and we're going to do jaw. Get all the jaw expressions, go back into our demo man mocap, paste those. Then we're going to go back to our voice demo man animation one more time, and we want to get chin. Okay, so chin, jaw, and mouth are going to be the three things that we're going to be searching. We're going to copy all of those, go back into our mocap animation, paste those. So now if I hit playback, we've got the mouth animation from the audio file, and then we have the full head animation from what we just created from LiveLink, right? So we can save that animation, go back into our sequencer. And if you want to create a duplicate of these animations, just so you have the original without it being overridden, you can. So you could do like Demo Man Mocap, Voice Demo Man, and then you could also do like Demo Man Merged, right? And just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to call this Demo Man _ voice. So Demo Man is first. So now we're going to load up the sequence again. Go back in here, and we're going to hit playback. So now you can see we have the mouth movement from our audio file and then the head movement and facial movement from our LiveLink capture, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to basically mute all the other stuff from what we had in here originally. So I'm going to mute these. So getting rid of the identity, the camera, and the video plane, so we don't have to worry about those anymore. And now we just have our MetaHuman with our new animation on it, right? So I'm going to now go in and add our audio. So I want to use the audio that we used to solve our mouth movement animation. So in order to do that, I'm going to go in here. So I'm going to click Add, Audio Track. I'm going to hit the plus on the newly created audio track and look for the one that I created, which is voiceover _ demo man. Okay, and then I'm going to let this play back.
Why, hello. I'm a demonstration of an AI voice being used with a MetaHuman asset to control its mouth and jaw movement. This, combined with facial capture from LiveLink, allows you to create some seriously impressive facial performances quickly, easily, and inexpensively. And the only hardware you need is your iPhone and a PC. Ain't technology grand?
All right, so that is basically a full performance combining the facial animation performance from the LiveLink and then combining that with that audio file that is an AI generated voice. So obviously that is a facial animation that wasn't really designed to work directly with the mouth movement and what was being said, because it's obviously that test facial movement and animation that I did originally, and then I have the voiceover audio animation for the mouth attached to that. But I did go in and redo that take with facial animation movement specifically for his head based on what he was saying. And the way I did that is I just lip synced to the audio file of his dialogue playing back, and then did my head and facial animation movements based on what I thought made sense with what was being said and the cadence and all that good stuff. Now, this is applied to a male asset, but I also have a female asset with different voice and also a different facial animation with a slightly different cadence. So she gets through the entire speech a little bit more quickly because her speed was a little faster. And I also re-recorded the head movement and facial performance specifically for her so it lined up with what she was saying. Once again, I just kind of lip synced to what she was saying, that dialogue, and then recorded facial expressions that I thought matched it. So what I'm going to do is have the sequence open off screen. I'm going to go in a little bit closer here so you can see it. I'm just going to let it play completely full screen from this viewpoint here, and I'm going to hit play.
Why, hello. I'm a demonstration of an AI voice being used with a MetaHuman asset to control its mouth and jaw movement. This, combined with facial capture from LiveLink, allows you to create some seriously impressive facial performances quickly, easily, and inexpensively. And the only hardware you need is your iPhone and a PC. Ain't technology grand?
All right, so that shows you that you can then utilize this same technique for all types of different MetaHumans assets, right? So male, female, it doesn't really matter. And you can still use your face to do it, and it will retarget as you'd expect it to. So once again, that was me re-recording the facial performance and then generating an audio file with her voice and then generating the mouth, jaw, and chin movement, and then combining those into a single animation asset and then getting this end result. So very, very impressive what you can do with very little equipment. Once again, I'm just using my iPhone, which is not even the latest generation. It's an iPhone 14 Pro. And then using that bit of software for the AI voice generation, which I will link in the description below. And then obviously running everything through Unreal Engine. So all the stuff that I'm doing here is only made possible because of what Unreal Engine allows you to do. So hopefully after watching this video, you won't have any questions, but if you do, please let me know in the comments below, or if you have any specific video requests, leave them down in the comments as well. Hopefully you found this video useful, and look forward to more in the future.